Hello and good morning, evening or afternoon, depending on when you are watching this latest Susty Talk from Edie. Susty Talks are our videos of one-on-one interviews with sustainability leaders across the UK and beyond to help keep us all a bit connected as we work remotely and hybridly. And I'm delighted to have Kirstin McCarthy on from Aggregate Industries with me on the call today. Great to see you. Whereabouts are you dialing in from today?
Hello and good day. I'm dialing in from Solihull in the Midlands.
And is it a sunny Solihull today?
It started off sunny and bright, but yes, it's clouded a little bit now. So
yeah, actually quite welcome after
the heat wave.
After the heat wave. Great. Well, me and you have been emailing a little. I'm quite aware of Aggregate Industries, but I think it would be great to start with an introduction to yourself. I understand that you've been Director of Sustainability at the company since 2021. So it'd be great to hear about your background and what your focuses are in your role at the moment.
Of course. So yes, I'm really glad to be here to talk to you today. Aggregate Industries is one of the UK's leading construction building materials suppliers across the UK. So we supply products such as cement, concrete, asphalt, concrete products and ready mix concrete. So we have multiple supplies that we supply to the construction industry. I was appointed to Aggregate Industries just over a year ago now, and it was a brand new appointment of Sustainability Director to the Executive Committee at Aggregate Industries, which firstly was one of the appealing positions for me is the fact that this organisation is taking sustainability seriously by appointing Sustainability Director at the top table of the business. It's really important that sustainability is driven in a very much a strategic direction, and that I can be part of that table where we're making key strategic decisions for the business, and sustainability is at the heart of that conversation. But before I joined Aggregate Industries, I'm brand new to the construction industry, so a lot to learn over the last 12 months, certainly. My previous background was in the aviation sector. I specifically worked for a major airport in the UK, which I worked for 20 years. Started off really developing the environmental strategy for an airport, including corporate responsibility because of the impact it has locally on communities and the types of impact it has on the environment. And during my time there, worked on major projects, including a runway extension and very controversial project in terms of changing the flight paths around the airport, which delivered overall environmental savings, a reduction in carbon and a reduction in overall noise, but affected people differently. So it was a very controversial, delicate project to manage. I was approached to join Aggregate Industries about, it was over 12 months ago now, and I've been with the business for 12 months. And I was really excited by the opportunity to join the construction sector, which actually in my first kind of overview of, if you sort of compare industries, if you like, I think the construction sector is quite traditional in its approach to sustainability, and in many ways the aviation industry is quite advanced in terms of its understanding its impact and managing it specifically more locally in terms of the effect on people, on communities, and in terms of its corporate responsibility. And I can probably give you a couple of examples of where I guess the construction industry have already benefited from the experience I've had within the aviation sector. And that's really in the digital space. So we've just introduced at one of our cement plants in the UK a new environmental monitoring platform where we've introduced automatic emissions and noise and odour monitors in the local community, and allowed us to analyse that data in a real-time fashion so that we can reduce the impact on communities. We introduced this many years ago in the aviation sector, and in the previous airport I worked for was the first airport in the world to deliver this noise and track keeping system. And we've utilised the same technology and the same supplier to bring this system across to a cement plant. And this is the world's first cement plant to have this system, whereby we can really proactively monitor and minimise our impacts on an operational daily basis. So it's really, really exciting to see the different industries and what we can transfer from my experience in aviation into construction.
And we can come into some of those solutions later, because I'm sure we'll have people listening and thinking, well, concrete and cement are really tricky to decarbonise. Maybe that is the similarity between the two industries, that there's, yeah, a lot to do and a lot of different solutions to implement. I did want to talk a little bit more about the layout of sustainability at the company. As you mentioned, it's great to see a company that has this sitting on exec committee, so that you have that responsibility. But I wanted to hear a little bit more about the layout, in that I know that Aggregate Industries is owned by Holcim, a company that a lot of our readers and watchers will be familiar with. So how do you work with the team at Holcim, and do you get to collaborate with similar teams at other owned businesses?
Yes, I think one of the great things about working for an organisation like Holcim is not only is its very clear ambition in sustainability and transforming its business, but also its capability in terms of delivering on its commitments and its global network of people and organisations. So as a global company, Holcim are in around 75 countries across the world, and in terms of how we interact with that we do it through a series of collaboration networks, which are sustainability topic led. So we have at least monthly interactions with the global network, and then we also have a European network of sustainability professionals, in which we have typically a number of subjects, whether it be showcasing best practice in terms of if something we've delivered at one of our sites, for example, I talked about that environmental monitoring system just earlier. We'll showcase that as an example to share that knowledge with our co-workers across the globe, but also we can work together on the more challenging concerns that we might have, where we can bring together, right, this is a challenge on the table, how can we resolve this? And you get different insights, you get different uses of technology, and we're all working to one common goal, and that's to achieve ultimately Holcim's ambitious sustainability targets.
That makes sense. And I wanted to clarify, you mentioned that Holcim's present in 75 countries. Is Aggregate Industries sort of UK only?
Yes, so Aggregate Industries is the UK company for which I work for and lead the strategy.
Got it. I just wanted to make sure. And yeah, as I mentioned a lot there in terms of solutions that you've mentioned that this is an opportunity for digital solutions to meet key goals. I think the one that our readers will be most familiar with is Holcim's net zero transition process, which is something that I understand is particularly challenging for some of the products that you mentioned, like concrete or cement. So other than digital monitoring, what needs to be done to bring the value chain of these materials and items to net zero, to that timeline?
Yeah, I mean, what one of the great things about Holcim is, again, they were the first construction company to sign up to science-based targets, for which have established some key milestones and a roadmap to decarbonise. As you rightly say, cement and concrete as being two of the biggest parts of our carbon footprint in the UK in particular that we need to decarbonise. So the levers we have really is to decarbonise is that if we focus on cement first, because actually with concrete, the biggest component of the carbon footprint of concrete is cement. So if we focus on cement, which is what we do in terms of our roadmap, is there are a number of levers, one of which is we can substitute the fuels for which we can use. We transition to low carbon fuels and alternative fuel supply that have lower carbon footprint in the production, operational production process. We can reduce the amount of clinker. Now, clinker is one of the components that creates the most carbon component of cement. So we can reduce the amount of clinker that we put through. And then also we can actually substitute cement. We can use alternative materials actually in the cement manufacturing process. One of the biggest opportunities of our time is the use of construction and demolition waste. So actually reusing materials that already exist give you a number of benefits. One, the less pull on natural resources. You're not then reproducing that product, you're actually just substituting it and replacing it, so you're reducing the operational carbon footprint. You're ultimately reducing the amount of new cement you need to produce, so that is another opportunity for us. Just taking it back to a UK specific example, we've just invested in our cement plant at Kirstins in the UK, £13 million for an alternative fuel facility, which allows us to introduce waste fuel facility as opposed to burning traditional coal. And that will reduce then the carbon footprint and embodied carbon of the product as we're reducing the carbon footprint. And then as we go beyond that, so we're working hard to reduce that, to reduce our clinker factor and to substitute fuels. Beyond that, the solution will be carbon capture, utilisation and storage. So we see that as very much being part of the solution to have net zero carbon cement. And we are working at, and we talked earlier about the capabilities of Holcim. They've trialling a number of projects across Europe that we are leveraging information from at the moment and knowledge so that we can advance our carbon capture project here in the UK. And that's one of the real advantages of Holcim and that network. So working together, we can learn, share best practice, and then work as a unit to collaborate and advance our journey to net zero at some pace.
We're definitely seeing like these different timelines of innovations for a lot of companies. So starting with some of the things that can be done now and then looking out towards a future where we hope that carbon capture and storage will be at a more significant scale. Yeah. I wanted to touch on some of the stuff you're already implementing because, yeah, you mentioned using like construction and demolition waste in this. So I'm presuming that for, yeah, concrete, cement and building materials, there's quite a big intersection between climate and the circular economy, that this is something that can be done in the nearer term.
Yeah, absolutely. And the two are intrinsically linked. So as part of our sustainability strategy, we set out within there a target to increase, and this is from a UK perspective, increase the volume of waste and recycled material so that we can substitute our products and reuse waste. And a really good example of that, so our target is to go from what currently today we're recycling 1.5 million tonnes, reusing that waste into our products. Our target by 2025 is to double that to 3 million tonnes. And there are a couple of areas of focus for us. One is on construction demolition waste and reusing concrete that already exists and using that either in the cement process and or in our other products. But a good example, perhaps it's not a cement or a concrete example, but it's one of my favourite products actually that we have, which is really classically shows how circular economy and carbon work intrinsically together. And that's in one of our asphalt products. It's called foam mix. So essentially with foam mix, what we're doing, put it in real plain English, is when we're operating on a road scheme, for example, we are physically planing the original road. So we're actually plane the road and reuse that material, reprocess it, and then relay it onto the road. So typically within a foam mix product, we can use about 85% of the content of that product is recycled asphalt planings. So we're not having to, recreate raw materials to create that. We're reusing the existing road that was already there. And then that typically as a scheme can reduce carbon by about 50%. I was amazed by this statistic actually. I read, I can't recall where I read it actually, but that the world's carbon the world's carbon in products is around 45% of the world's carbon exists in today's products. So if we can reuse and recycle that, then clearly we can take out a lot of the carbon that's associated with the production of new products. So that's one of our big focuses, and that will then in turn reduce the embodied carbon, as I said, with the foam mix example of our products.
That makes sense. And we're seeing, yeah, a lot in terms of this materials innovation, and then in building materials as well, materials that are stronger but somehow lightweight in concrete as well, so that people can work with designers and developers. Is that something you're looking at, working with other parts of the value chain for these designs that mean, yeah, the material is special and we can just use a little bit less of it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've just come off a call today, actually, one of our key customers and clients, because really it's about actually taking action now. We've got the range of products that's already there, but what do we want to do is to get involved in the earlier stages. So as being the material supplier, we don't just want to get involved in supplying the material at the end. We want to get involved in the design stages, because some of our products, you can actually you can create more from using less. There's some concrete products that we have which are strong enough, and that means you can use less of that to build the same size and building. So we want to work with customers and clients in collaboration so that we can reduce using materials as well, and extending the durability and life of our materials are all key parts of our strategy. It's not just about lowering the embodied carbon, which we will do and continue to do, but it's about working with designers to optimize the design and more cleverly choose then the right products to meet that specification.
Yeah, I was with the Climate Group recently for the Concrete Zero work, and they mentioned, it's usually been, as you say, quite traditional and then quite linear. So one party does this and then the next bit happens. It doesn't so much go that the supplier goes to the designer or to the person specifying procurement. So that's going to have to change a little bit.
Yeah, and this is key to how we're transforming our business here in the UK. So rather than being just a traditional material supplier, we are supplying knowledge and tools to enable us to influence the design. So we're upskilling our teams, we're upskilling our all of our teams to work in collaboration with our customers and to understand their priorities, and to get in at that really early stage of design where we can both work together to optimize the material to reduce, the carbon footprint.
Great. Well, I'm aware that we've spoken a lot there about climate mitigation, but having a look at the company's work in other areas of climate, I did notice that it's been doing a lot about climate resilience and risk assessments and things like that. And I know that's something a lot of people who read EDie are dealing with, especially now that there's the TCFD mandate here in the UK, and now that the EU and US are sort of firming up their plans for better disclosures as well. So it would be great to hear about your work on that process. I think people do want some case studies and want to know how it works behind the scenes as they prepare to do it.
Yeah, of course. So we're in the early stages of really setting out how we assess our sites. So across the UK, we have 280 sites. And that, if you discuss and talk to some of our teams and we say, right, how resilient are your sites to the impact of climate change, and traditionally the answer would be, oh yes, it's fine. And then we start to ask the questions: have you ever had flooding on your sites? Have you ever had any material shortages? Have you had any disruption to transport networks? They don't necessarily recognise the climate impacts and how they have on the actual operation. So in the first instance, we are discussing that to kind of educate and recognise and assess at our sites where climate change or the impacts of climate change are impacting our business and our resilience. So that's the first phase that we are undertaking. One of the big areas that we're looking at the moment is water scarcity as well. So this is more about impact and trying to reduce our impact on water scarcity, but ultimately that also has an impact on our availability to then produce some of our products. So we are working to assess all of that at the moment. And then what we will do is prioritise and have climate resilience plans for all of our sites. And we're starting off by identifying the high risk areas and working our way through identifying the impacts, and then ultimately how we can reduce those impacts. So we are quite early in the stages of this process, but we really see it as a priority for our business so that we can continue to operate.
It sounds like that context piece is really key, as you mentioned, going to each factory and asking what's going on, because I understand that concrete and cement are so local and that different communities in the UK will be dealing with different kinds of these risks. Yeah,
different aspects and impacts across the whole of the UK, which is a challenge for us, but it's a really important piece of work.
Great. Well, when the full report does come out, I look forward to read it. But Kirstin, I'm aware that we're running out of time on our call today, so thank you very much for your time and for your insights today.
Okay, thank you very much.